What sticks out to you about the Saints defense?
Really good. I feel like I've played them a lot over I don't know, going back to 2018, 2017 even. And, DA's been there the whole time. And so really this staff, for the most part, I think the meat of their staff has been there, and they got a lot of similar players that have been there over the years, and really physical defense. They're really in tune with each other. They're very sound. They're not overly complicated. They play it really well, and they know all the nuances of the defense, and they know how to stress the offense, and it's just a really impressive group. I think Cameron Jordan's one of the premier DNs. He's always been. He doesn't look like he's missed a step, unfortunately. And they just got a lot of playmakers really at all three levels. They've done a really good job drafting, acquiring players, and they're really well coached. So they're just, you look in the fourth quarter of all these games, they're low scoring. You look at a lot of games, teams haven't scored a lot of points going in the fourth quarter, so you got to earn every inch with these guys.
What's allowed Andy to stay in the league as long as he has?
Smart, really smart, obviously talented, knows where to go with the ball, can make all the throws. Really calm, to get to protection adjustments, get to the right run checks. Just a very aware quarterback in this league. Everybody likes being around him. He's still talented enough to do it at a high level, obviously. So there's a lot of reasons why he's able to continue to do it.
Safe to assume you're just going to play him every year now that he's gone.
Apparently.
It seems like you see him every year.
Yeah, I know.
Is there any carryover from what you did against Lamar, maybe the design run and what they do with Taysom Hill, or is it completely different with how they use him in the run game?
Every team's a little bit different schematically with how they utilize things, but it doesn't hurt to play an athletic quarterback and then have another one the next week.
Do you, on the road in NFL, is it pretty much standard operating procedure at this point that you always go on a silent count, or is it still just dependent on certain stadiums?
Depending on certain stadiums, sometimes under center you can get away with being vocal. Sometimes you got to work a under center silent cadence. In the gun, typically you always assume going in that you got to use, the silent, and then if over the course of the game you feel like it changes, then it changes. But that can be, usually indoor stadiums are pretty loud. There's not a lot of leeway there.
Sorry. How do you think Joe is doing in terms of taking checkdowns? Is that something you go over with him?
Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, you rarely have to. He's one of the best I've ever been around, and finding them very quickly. Kind of understanding where a soft spot in the defense is going to be, and instead of maybe exhausting a progression to get to him, which he does, he gets to him sooner, knowing that that's going to be the advantage for the back to be able to, or tight end. You think about one of Hayden's against Miami, the first drive of the game, when not the third down conversion Hayden had, but the first down completion where they then got a defensive penalty for a late hit on Hayden. I mean, he went to Hayden quick as a check down, which is probably why that play was so effective, because he recognized the coverage, recognized the primary read wasn't going to be there, very quick to get to Hayden, and allowed us really to have a really efficient gain on first down.
Jonas sounded like he was going to give it a pretty good try to play. What's the plan for him for the week, and what do you think his prognosis is?
Yeah, limit him early in the week. Just take him day to day, and we'll see where it's at. It's encouraging that he wants to do it, and ultimately we'll just have to see how he feels as the week progresses. But he's a tough guy. You appreciate that about him. He's going to give it everything he can to try to make it through the week and see where he's at on Sunday. But it's too early in the week to predict how it's going to play out.
Would you be comfortable kind of keeping him on the shelf the first couple days this week and then playing him anyways?
I would.
How impressive was
Go ahead.
Same thing with T.
Same thing with T. Yep, limit him early with the ankle sprain.
how impressive was it that Jonah was hurt and played his best game of the season on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, that's Jonah. He's just he kind of quietly does his job and has been dependable for us. And we really appreciate what he's done and the level he's played for us this year. And he's just done a really nice job manning that left tackle position for us.
Who would slide in for him if he isn't able to?
We'll make that decision as it goes.
How happy have you been with protection the last couple of weeks? We asked you a lot about the first couple of weeks now.
Really good. It's really Burrow had probably 3 hits. 2 of them were the sacks, and then 1 hit early in the game on 3rd down. and again, it's not always the line. One of the sacks was just a communication issue we had, but I thought the line has really. I've been saying this even on some of our least productive games. It all goes hand in hand. I've seen them every single week continue to improve, and I think the last 3 weeks in particular, they've really given us everything we need to be able to be effective throwing the ball.
How unique is Taysom Hill?
What's
How
that?
unique is Taysom Hill?
I guess something in my throat. Very unique. Very unique. Explosive playmaker. Just remember from his time in college, him doing all that stuff as well. It's you got a guy back there that's an explosive runner, but again, he's got the background throwing the ball too, and so you got to treat that different than you would just a traditional Wildcat, because he can play quarterback, and then he can go in the game and play tight end, and they can utilize him a lot of different ways that way. He can block in the run game, he can run routes, he can throw. So those Swiss Army knives are very difficult to defend, and that's a nice weapon for them to have.
What kind of percentages are there in the different spots for Hill? I mean, they list him in the two deepest at tight end. Has he got more snaps at tight end than he does at Wildcat or wherever else they use him?
I couldn't give you the percentages off the top of my head, but you just got to be prepared when he's on the field. Lou and those guys will do a good job putting a plan together.
Who was the mole in New Orleans that was vouching for the character of Von Bell and Trey Hendricks and Eli Apple for you guys to turn out to all three of them start playing so well here?
We do deep dives. The mole for Eli was Lou Anarumo. Having worked with him, I knew one of Trey's college coaches. We grew up together at FAU. Von Bell's reputation, I think, it dates back all the way to whatever you want to research about Von Bell. So, we got Von first, obviously. So then you get a chance to talk to Von about Trey and Eli, and obviously he wanted to play with those guys again. So that usually is how it works. Is we try to utilize the relationships we have, and then if you got players that have played with those guys, players you trust their opinion and their approach, and they know what it takes to win championships. And obviously, Vaughn was quick to say that Trey and Eli being in the building can help us win championships, and so that went a long way for us.
How much, when you talk about a lot about the defense, the misfit toys, right, that all seem to be motivated by being cast off. This is kind of a prime example. How much did their experiences there, having success, and also kind of having motivation, be a driver for you guys rebuilding the defense?
Yeah, I think it goes a long way. I feel like I've played New Orleans so many times, and you had so much respect for their defense, how they were coached, the types of players they had in the unit, how they played. And so then when your research verifies that they're about what we want to be around, I've played them so many times. They played four championships. And so they know walking in the door. And two of those guys have the Ohio State background that I really think has gone a long ways with us, of those guys understanding some of the intangible stuff that's important. So it's really, for us, been a home run for all three of those guys.
With Vaughn, did you go into free agency in 2020 looking for a safety like Vaughn, or was it kind of an opportunity that presented itself then?
I think it's an opportunity that presented itself, to be quite honest with you. It didn't happen the first day. If I remember correctly, right out the gate, it's just when Von Bell's available and out there, it's something you got to talk long and hard about, because we'd always had a high opinion of him. I remember writing the scouting report for him, before we played New Orleans 3 times one year, preseason, regular season, NFC Championship game, all in New Orleans. So I'd give the presentation on the DBs, and I remember talking a lot about Vaughn and how impactful he was as a player. And so, again, going back to my assistant receiver days, and then here I am as a head coach, and you get an opportunity to add a guy, and you feel like you've watched hours and hours of tape of him. And again, I had very high opinions of Vaughn, and they've worked out well for us.
The other day, Brett was your Lamar Jackson. Who is your Tyson Hill?
Yeah, we'll get to that as the practice goes, but that was good. That was a good way to get Cam back involved in practice and watch him move around a little bit when you hadn't gotten to see him do that. Now you want to start working Cam, getting actual reps over there, not as a starter, but start to integrate him into the defense a little bit. So again, we'll play it through the week and see how that unfolds.
Yeah, earlier Joe Burrow
Welcome.
talked about the collaborative effort on offense.
Mm-hmm. Why
Why is that so beneficial? How does that help, especially now when things aren't necessarily going as well as they could be?
Well, I've got a lot of respect for the guys that we have that work with us on the offense side of the ball. They're all here for a reason. They're all just I think insanely intelligent, much smarter than I am, and so why not use that resource as best I can, whether we're game planning over the course of the week, whether we're taking suggestions during the game or between series. Brian and I, we work side by side every hour of every single day, and so it's just it's not even long conversation. It's just quick things to get your brain focused on what you need to focus on. And again, it's always been a great process that's really served us well. And that's just how do we utilize on that side of the ball.
I asked Joe about it. He said everyone takes ownership
Mhm.
that way. There's no blame game or anything like that. Do you think that's one of the benefits potentially?
Well, that's not what we're about. We want to put our egos aside. We don't want to ever shift blame. We're all responsible for the wins and the losses and the good things and the bad things. And I think that's what's special about this coaching staff is there's not this side of the ball played better in this game than this other side. And, if you guys done your part, we would have won. There's none of that. It's just we're all in this thing together. And I think that's what's important to have a championship caliber team.
I know earlier Joe Burrow said from an identity standpoint, the offense is starting to find its strides. How have you seen that, and what is sort of the identity, if for the offense staff, if it's sort of not there already?
We're just doing what it takes to try to allow ourselves an opportunity to score points in every game, and that can shift over the course of a game. That can shift from week to week. Every defense poses its issues at the same time. You want to be attacking and make sure that teams are concerned about some of the things that you're going to do that are a core part of what we're about. So every week we go in with a plan that the plan is to score 60 points and score in every possession and get our defense a healthy lead. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But again, we're going to be an attacking offense and continue to do what we need to do. We feel like to move the ball and score some points.
What's going to be the point of emphasis when you talk to the team throughout the week?
The point of emphasis?
Is there going to be anything that maybe you emphasize throughout the week more than anything else that you normally would? Or?
Going on the road and being focused, and find a way to get a road win off of a divisional game last week that's tough, and then great teams can rebound and go on the road again and find a way to win.
One thing that Sam mentioned that would be a focus this week would be finishing, and obviously the 3 losses have come on the last play of the game. Is there something to that good teams develop a way or a method to finish football games?
Yeah, that can show up differently. That can show up against Miami when we created that turnover late. People may not look at that as finishing because it didn't happen on the last drive of the game per se, but it did allow us to go score a touchdown to finish the game and make it a 2-score game to where the game was essentially over going into that last drive. So there can be plays that show up before the final finish that allow you to finish, if that makes sense. And those are, we've made this reference before with our team in preseason games of when that moment is, maybe in the third quarter where you've got a chance to essentially close a team out, make a big play, get a 2-score lead to where now you can play ball in the fourth quarter the way you want to play. So it doesn't always come down to the last drive. There's moments that maybe don't get written about or the team feels that really happen that can shift the game, in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter.
You talk so much about starts, and Brian kind of mentioned yesterday that every game you guys come out because of the talent you have offensively, defenses kind of throw wrinkles at you that you hadn't seen on film. What are the keys to kind of starting fast against things that you maybe have not seen a particular team do?
Well, doing things that we believe in, that we're comfortable with, and you'll always have a scheme thought that you feel like's good during the week, and then if one element of it is off, you're in 2nd and 10, and so it's a good play that maybe just didn't work, and maybe you saw the defense you weren't anticipating, or maybe something was just off with the play, and you got to try to overcome that on the next down. So I think that's just football. There's always going to be some things that you prepare for and some things that you don't. You got to be ready to adjust and make your guys feel comfortable as quickly as possible.
There have been a lot made in the last couple of days about some of the roughing the passer calls this past weekend. I mean, as a coach, do you talk to your defensive players and kind of show them examples of that and say, this is the way that the game might be called? How do you kind of approach that?
Yeah. There's videos they send out, weekly about different areas of emphasis. And to the best you can, we always make sure all the coaches have seen that, especially for the positions that it's going to relate to the most. There's a reason the league is sending this out this week because they feel like it's an area of emphasis over the first 4 or 5, 3 games of the season, whatever it is, and they want everyone to be aware of it. So we do our best to make sure everybody's educated on that. And You can't cover everything every week. Maybe it's roughing the passer, maybe it's DPI, maybe it's some other element. And so you just have to do your best to educate guys over really a 12-month period of the rules, how we want to play. But then if there is an area of emphasis that they send out, we just make sure the players are aware of it.
How loud can the Superdome get?
Pretty loud.
What challenges do those present?
Yeah, you got to be locked in. You got to have great urgency, first of all, to communicate and get aligned. Because if there's any shift of a play that's got to occur, the quarterback can't be trying to get your attention, trying to make sure everybody hears it. You got to echo things. So really just the urgency and the communication has got to be on point. You got to be great getting in calls early. It's not so much for Lou because it's quieter on that side of the ball, so you can communicate a little bit better. But from an offense perspective, you got to be quick at the call. You got to try to not simplify calls necessarily, but be mindful of the verbiage. And so I think we've done a good job of that early in this week. The plan's not done yet, but we feel good about that.
Safe to say be on time.
Be on time with the calls. Yeah, don't be late.
Is there a way you can simulate the crowd noise in practice any differently than you normally would for a road game?
We've always got the crowd noise out there, and we do our best to put it close to Joe and, do your best to simulate that way. We're not going to go in the stadium like we did, against the Chiefs last year and crank it up. That's one way to do it. But I feel like our guys in these environments have handled them really well. It's very loud. It's not always easy, but I feel like our guys – Joe does a good job with the linemen communicating cadence-wise, making sure we're all on the same page. He does a really good job in the huddle, making sure everyone can clearly see his mouth and hear what he's saying. And so our guys have tended to handle that really well.
When will y'all be able to use the indoor bubble? Is that ready to go, I guess, now if you wanted to use it?
Friday. Yeah.
Are y'all going to be there Friday?
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to be like? I mean, why Friday, and kind of talk us through the process of that?
Oh, well, we want to go indoors and simulate being indoors. And so it works out great that we could use it sooner. We're going to use it on Friday just to, again, the field space is good when it's warm weather to be able to utilize the field space for individual and special teams outside. But we want a chance to go in there and get a chance to maximize it. So they've done a tremendous job getting that thing up and running faster than I anticipated. And being able to use it. I really anticipated being able to use it as it got colder in late November. That was initially kind of the mindset, and they've done a tremendous job getting that thing up and running. And so just really cool that they were able to get that done for us to where we can go play our first dome game of the season. I guess technically not, Dallas was, but inside and get some work in there.
I know you weren't necessarily looking for a wide receiver in the first round this past draft, but
Yeah.
given your background with wide receivers, what do you think of Chris Olave and what he's been able to do in his rookie season?
Yeah, really productive, not surprising. Great college career, well coached in college. I think Heartline does a great job with all those guys. And it's probably because he was well coached himself down there at the Dolphins, But no, Chris has really transitioned well to the NFL. I think it's a good system for him. He's probably ran some very similar stuff that they're doing now. They use his speed the right way. He's got a great catch radius. He can really transition into a runner very quickly and get a lot of extra yards. And so, again, he's a first-round pick for a reason. And not all those guys hit the ground running as quickly as he does. He's done a really nice job of it.
Go ahead.
Everybody's talking about the tweaks in the coverages, and they're a little funky, red zone or other places as well. Are you seeing a consistency of that funk, or are people adding funk to the funk?
No,
It's a different funk every week.
Generally, teams aren't going to go out of their framework of what they traditionally do. So you play some teams that if they don't major in a coverage, they're not just going to typically put it in for you. These guys have shown the ability to do everything. They do it well. Again, they're well coordinated. They do a good job communicating. So again, we got to have a great plan in place to allow our guys to play fast and make the most of the opportunities they can get.
Teams are doubling Jamar, you all talked about it. Are they basically giving him as much as you could give any receiver in the league in terms of the coverages and double teams they're throwing at him?
That's hard for me to say that. Obviously, teams are very aware of him, and so we have to be mindful of that as we are and try our best to put him in a good position to still be productive for us, which he was. I think in that final drive, he was a key point of emphasis for us and made all the plays that we gave him an opportunity to make, and was a big part of us going out and scoring a touchdown there, even when. There's a pretty good idea that he was going to get the ball. He still made the most of those opportunities. So, again, it's on us to make sure we're putting our guys in the best position, giving Joe the flexibility to work through progressions and find other open guys if they're there. And but those guys have done a really good job handling it when they do put an added emphasis on leaning a safety to him, doubling him on third down, clouding him, carrying him a little bit more in the clouds. Those are all just things that come with being a great receiver.
You mentioned.
Paul referenced the three Saints going back. You also have Jamar who grew up down there.
Yeah.
Quarterback had a pretty decent career down there. Is there a cap on the number of captains?
You were hearing my thoughts about an hour ago, I think, as I was walking through the hallway. When do I do my next one? Friday? I'll answer that on Friday for you.
So I'm wondering, you got to play Oklahoma twice, but it was never in Norman.
Don't bring that up.
Is there a lingering what if, how special that would have been had you gotten that opportunity?
I don't know. Maybe it was never a possibility. So I never really thought much about it, to be honest with you, until this moment. But that was a stadium I grew up going to every Saturday for 20 years of my life. So pretty cool. It's a little different. We're not playing at LSU Stadium, but we're playing down there, and I understand all that comes with that. So that's a neat opportunity for these guys to go back there to a special place where they've all had great moments down there in the area. Whether they were Saints or Tigers and LC being a part of that as well, playing down there in LSU. So we got a good group of guys that I'm sure that there's some special emphasis for them.
You mentioned, Chris Olave kind of hit the ground running and started out pretty well in the first year. I mean, what kind of characteristics, what kind of traits do you think specifically allows first-year receivers to do that, to play well in their first couple of games?
Well, I think technique, understanding the technique, and again, I don't want to take away from Chris. This may be all of Chris. He may have understood that, but I also know that he's really well coached. And so you add all that together, and it gives you a great chance of success. And so not only at Ohio State, but at the Saints. They do a great job coaching these wideouts, continuing to develop these wideouts. They've done this for a long time. And so, again, he's made the most of his opportunities. He was seemingly prepared for it, has taken advantage of it. They do a great job with how they utilize him. He's had good quarterback play with all these guys that have played quarterback and thrown the ball, and he's made the most of those opportunities.
Zach, was Khalid Kareem just strictly a health thing, and what do you expect the focus to be with that roster spot?
I can't give you a firm answer on that one yet, but again, we'll see. We like Khalid, and there's a possibility that he could come back in the practice squad as well. But it's just as we make some roster decisions, that was one of the moves we had to make.